Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks.
I'm Jimmy Wong.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
And today we are breaking down every single set from 2024. That's right. It's the end of the year, so it's time to look back and just think about how everything went. So we're going to talk about every set today, everything from Ravnica Remastered, remember that, to the most recent set, Foundations.
I'd be lying if I didn't look at the outline and go, oh yeah, Ravnica Remastered.
It's always the first set of the year, because it was also double feature that one time.
Yeah,
it's always like, wait, that happened? Wait, it's almost 2025? Yeah, we're going to be ranking the sets as well and comparing what our rankings are to each other, and just basically understanding what we thought were the best as well and the worst. But they were all great, to be honest. They're all pretty good, I think, this year.
But before we get into it, if you want to get your hands on any of the cards from this year, well, the best place to go is cardkingdom.com/command. That's where you can get your Magic products, singles, anything at all, you know. With the holidays around, we often have a little bit of holiday money.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's what you got. Hopefully that's what I get. If
Money
you're listening and you're
A
my
little
friends or family out there, just give me money.
cold.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Ooh.
To keep your house warm.
Yeah.
There you go.
So if you want to spend that money on Magic cards, which we know you do, building new decks and such like that, cardkingdom.com/command has a huge inventory. They've got all the cards you're looking for in the version you're looking for. They've got super fast shipping. They have really good customer service. So if anything gets messed up, they make it right, and they make it right quickly. That's why we love Card Kingdom. They are professionals like we are. They have high quality standards like we do. Again, cardkingdom.com/command. That's where you should go to get all your cards.
And once those cards are in your hand, you're going to need to protect them. Go to ultrapro.com/command to pick up all of the highest quality Magic accessories in the business. Take that holiday spending money and put it into your decks. Make sure that they're kept safe and protected. You can buy deck boxes or sleeves, playmats, binders, everything that you need to have a safe and organized collection. Plus, they have some very cool looking stuff as well. They've got all the officially licensed Magic art, so you can get your favorite art on a playmat or on sleeves. They also have some collections of their own, including the Mana 8 collection.
Ooh.
It's bright white. It's got the big mana symbols in the middle. It's perfect for getting signed at conventions. MagicCon Chicago is right around the corner. You can get it signed or doodled on by an artist, and then you can get it framed in their cool display
really
playmat cases. So you can hang them on the wall and remember MagicCons forever. And you can support the show while you're shopping there at ultrapro.com/command.
The last way to support the show is directly patreon.com/commandzone. That's where you can get access to our Discord, where Rachel, myself, Josh answer your questions on a daily basis. You can communicate with our amazing community there and join our fun group of people that get to watch game nights and extra turns a day early, ad-free. Incredible. So if you want to get more amazing content and access to cool stuff, on the other tiers, we have some exclusive content as well. Just check it out. There's a ton of offerings on patreon.com/commandzone, and we shout out one lucky patron every single episode. And so this episode is dedicated to William Coyle.
William, you rock.
All right, let's get into it. There were 10 sets released in 2024. 2 of them were reprint sets, and we're going to go through every single one of them chronologically, and we're going to rank them as well. So the ranking scale is similar to what you might see on Dance Dance Revolution or other video games, where S...
It's a tier list.
A
tier list.
In general.
I don't know. I associate S tier with video games for whatever reason. But S is the very, very tippy top. It's better than an A+. It's an all-timer all the way down to F. So S is, there have been a few S's in the past, but this is it clears the line for every other set. It's way up and above. We'll talk about it for years to come. A is, it's great. It's good. Might not have the same legacy power as S. B is memorably positive. I like what you wrote there, Rachel.
Yeah, I remember that set being good.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. C is, it's fine. I think a lot of people associate C with bad, but I think C is just actually, it's okay. It might even be forgettable.
Forgettable is a big thing I think about when I think about C, where it's just that was fine.
Yeah.
I don't remember a lot of cards from it. I don't remember really, I didn't play it a lot.
I don't have a positive, but I also don't have a negative connotation.
Yeah, right down the middle.
Association with it, yeah.
D is just memorably negative. This set was not great. Didn't enjoy it. Didn't have fun. Didn't play it that much. The most recent example of this that is either that or F was Aftermath, I think. Where is that the one with the tiny little
Aftermath's
boosters?
probably an F, honestly.
Yeah, it's probably getting out to F because F is just outright disaster.
Yeah.
As in, should never happen again. And if you don't see it happening again, it's because it was not only rated an F by the community, but also probably by the internal teams at Wizards too.
Probably hurt their bottom line a lot.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to the criteria that we were using to grade this as well, there are a few things. First is just playability. And this, I think, applies because Josh and I love limited. So do you, Rachel.
I do too, yeah.
So playability both from a limited side all the way up to how it fits into Commander, including the precons and all that. Whether or not the reprint value was good, and ranking that as well. The impact of new cards on the format. And finally, just was it cool? Was it sweet? Was it
Were people
dope?
excited about it? Did people? Were people generally positive?
Did it bring
about it?
also like does it bring in new people?
Yeah.
Does it generate that kind of excitement that reminds you of the first time you got into Magic? Things that do that for me always boost that grade up.
Does it make Magic as a game seem better or more accessible in some way?
Totally.
I think the cool factor is sort of a big deal when we're talking about sets overall. These are the same criteria that we were grading the precons on. So some things are weighted a little bit differently when you're talking about the full set. I think playability and cool factor are a very big deal when you're talking about a set that you kind of get trapped in as a limited format or you get so many cards based on it that you just want it to be fun. You want the theming to be cool.
Yeah, I noticed as I was ranking them, I'm not a player that cares about theme a ton, but it was pretty heavily weighed when I was ranking how good the sets were every year. The theme tended to, I was like, man, I guess I do care about theme more than I think.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention is for new card impact, it's also about like what new mechanics did it introduce to the game?
Yeah,
Because
right.
you can kind of project forward, like this is a cool mechanic they're going to be able to use again. And so that's a boon to Magic as a whole if a cool mechanic came out. That's
Yeah,
gonna be a
sure.
well they can draw from in the future.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with legacy, like what we're talking about for the A's and S's is how much is this going to impact the future of Magic?
How
Was
much does
cool
it leave
today?
a legacy, not the format? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Surveil is like a really great example of that when they were finally like, no, let's put a name to this. And we've seen Surveil have a huge impact on the game since then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the first set of the year, which we already kind of intimated based on our reaction to having not remembered it, what grade it might get.
Ravnica Remembered.
In this case, remastered.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is the 17th time we've gone back to Ravnica. And not the last time this year.
All right. So this set, Ravnica Remastered, was released on January 12th. About as far from this date as we can get in one of these. The most valuable reprint was Cyclonic Rift, which was $31.75 and is now down to $30.
Whoa,
Well, it kind of went down then back up.
It definitely
right?
had a bigger impact on the price in the immediate, and that
It's been a
crawled
year,
back up over the course of the year, which we see often, especially with cards like Cyclonic Rift. Bruvac, the Grandiloquent, was $30.25 and is now $25.25. So that went
Same
down a little
trajectory,
more, but about
yeah.
$5. The Shocklands were all reprinted in the remastered set, which was one of the best things about it, I would say, and kind of got those numbers, the prices of those back down to quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
Normal, yeah, I would like close to 10 to 12 is like sort of what I expect from Shocklands, and they were well above that before Ravnica Remastered.
And this is just a pattern that happens with Shocklands and has always happened, right? Where they get reprinted, they go down for a little while, then they slowly creep back up, and usually when they're around $20 to $25 is when their next reprint happens, suppresses them back down to around 10, and they're going to slowly creep back to that range again, and we're going to see this cycle repeat itself because they're kind of like, besides original duels, the best lands you know, that most decks want. So yeah, so getting them back into the ecosystem, just re-injecting them is something they need to do, and this accomplished that.
I really like this like remastered set idea that they've been doing. They did it with Dominaria Remastered, which was a great set and had great value in terms of what you could open. I think Ravnica Remastered was basically just the Shocklands. There was a couple of things you could open, but like Bruvac is a pretty narrow effect that like most people don't necessarily need. And Cyclonic Rift was like, you either play it or you don't. So having that price come down is nice, but it was basically you open it to try and get a few Shocklands. And that's it.
It felt like a nostalgia play as well. I remember when they announced this at one of the Magic Cons, and they were showing, they had these cool old border versions of Ravnica favorites like the Mizzet, the Shocklands as well.
Yeah, Rakdos got an old border.
Yeah, they had the anime alt arts, which is very common now and much less special than when it first started, and then some full art sharks as well. So I think overall, Ravnica didn't have that much impact on the format back then, outside of like having cool legendaries, and those legendaries don't really stand the test of time compared to the legendaries we get now. Just look at new Niv Mizzets compared to the original ones.
They've also been reprinted a ton. Like there's not
Yeah.
like the Niv Mizzet Perun is not an expensive card. Rakdos Lord of Rides is not an expensive card.
Yeah, there's not a lot
Like,
of them that you were like,
even Aurelia is like used to be
Yeah.
expensive and now really has come down to under 10 fairly reliably. I heard this sentiment a lot and I echo it, is like it's sort of weird seeing old like Ravnica in Old Border. Ravnica's a new frame set in my
Right.
head. Like this is a modern Magic set.
Right.
Yeah.
And putting it into like the Old Border frames was bizarre to me.
It's funny because I also echo that, but it feels old compared to how fast Magic accelerated a lot of other factors. But yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like, did you know that the taking the time between you were born and now, and then there's someone that whatever, it's like the same amount of time. You're like, oh no, I'm ancient. It's kind of what it feels like. Ravnica is old.
Yeah.
I think this speaks to another sort of issue with Ravnica Remastered. The Old Border thing was really cool the first time they did it. And the second and third and
returns.
fourth time they do it, it becomes old hat. Full art lands used to be amazing, and they would only do them once in a
Yeah.
while. Do full art lands all the time, and now it's not even worthy of mentioning. And Ravnica, the plane, is a place we have gone back to so many times that it was very hard to sort of get excited about it, especially since the next set we're going to talk about is also set in Ravnica.
Yeah.
And just drawing from the same well over and over tends to have a sort of numbing effect, and I think that's what we saw. Because Time Spiral Remastered was very exciting at the time, and that was like cards we just didn't have access to in Limited, and just hadn't seen printed in a while. This is not the case with Ravnica Remastered. We have seen these cards all the time. We've been to this plane all the time. It feels like we've been to this plane like every year, more or less, or every other year for like the last decade or so. And it's like, at a certain point, it's like, it's hard to continue to get excited about it because it's just happening all the time.
Yeah. The guilds were very popular, obviously, when they were first announced. It completely created the standard for what those color pairings were called. Now it's just not so exciting. So let's give some grades, maybe.
Well, yeah, I just want to say also, from a draft environment perspective, it is tough to have an environment with all 10 guilds.
Yeah.
And I found the draft, like, Ravnica is sort of known as being an up and down draft just because of the two color pairings and how that works. And I found Remastered to be like, okay.
Yeah, I didn't even draft it.
I didn't draft it. I mean, prices, like the packs being a little bit more expensive and like the draft environment not being super compelling and unique just sort of kept me away from it. I don't think I opened any of this product.
Yeah, I drafted it 2 times and it was fine. Which
So-
I was gonna say.
we'll lead into my grade.
Yeah.
Which I gave it a C, which I didn't necessarily view it negative. Yeah, but maybe like a C- is probably my true grade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's fine. I think I won't remember that this existed. I barely remembered when we were writing this outline. So yeah.
Yeah. I was a C as well. This one was sort of classic, forgettable, and it's nice to have reprint sets, and I like the idea of these remastered sets. I don't think this was a particularly well executed one.
Yep, I gave it a C as well. And I don't even consider this a main set. Nothing new about it. It just kind of felt like one of those mandates of like, we got to get one more set out this year. It's got to sell pretty well. All right, let's pump it with some of the things that we know will turn that dial up.
All right, the final grade we have for Ravnica Remastered is a C.
And when you compare it to Double Feature, which sat in that slot the previous year, it's better than that.
Better than double.
Better than that.
It
looks better.
than
So,
double.
yeah.
I still
makes
can't
it
read
look
those
a little
cards.
better.
So.
All right. Let's move on to the next set of the year. It was 2 in Ravnica. This is Murders at Karlov Manor.
Mansion.
This came out on February 9th in 2024. This was the detective-themed set. So we're talking about clues and Surveil came
Suspects.
back, and it had new mechanics like Suspect, which we remember, right? Everybody
Totally remember how Suspect
when
what
something
Suspect-
suspected.
Disguise, that we remember because
Yep.
we played some
Another
limited
manifest.
format. Cases were a brand new type of enchantment that you could solve and then get a bigger benefit from. There was also collect evidence and, of course, investigate. So that was like sort of the vibe of the set in terms of what it did to Commander. The most built new Commander from it was, of course, Voya, Jaws of the Conclave, which was a
Controversial?
controversial design, pushed,
Very
to
pushed.
say the least.
Yeah. An Arin Hanson favorite.
Yeah.
On game
Yeah.
nights.
There was a lot of talk in the community after it came out about like, why does it have ward?
Why does it care? Like, why does it say wolves on it at all? Like, it's just
At least don't give
another-
it ward. Let people kill it because it's too powerful.
It's so powerful.
It checks many boxes, as a lot of the push commanders do these days.
Yes.
There were some very popular new cards, though.
There were. The most played new cards were Demand Answers, which is a new thrill of possibility that allows you to sacrifice an artifact.
Yep.
The much lauded land cycle, the Surveil Lands.
Yeah.
These are the ones that enter tapped, and they're fetchable, and when they enter, you surveil 1. Then also Archdruid's Charm, War Leader's Call, and Aftermath Analyst all sort of are doing big numbers in terms of EDH rec performance.
Yeah.
All of them are sort of plays on old effects in new packages.
Yeah, Aftermath Analyst, we talked about this in another episode, just an absurd card, and saw a ton of play in Standard, as well as is going to be one of those, yep, you're playing green and you want this effect, it goes in there.
It's pretty cracked.
The Surveil Lands, I thought in particular, they almost single-handedly changed my grade because they are something that's going to impact Commander for a long time to come. And immediately were like one of the top non-basic lands that could go in any deck. And, when you play with them, they are awesome.
Yeah.
You
And
often fetch for Surveil Lands instead of Shock Lands. And that's a crazy thing to say. So that just injected into the format, to me, is kind of a pretty big deal. As far as like, if you were to measure the size of the ripples created by any given set, Surveil Lands by themselves from this set have a pretty big splash.
yeah. The only thing that I didn't like about them is that they are all very expensive now as a result of
Immediately
being that.
expensive.
Yeah. And we're talking 3 times the price of Shocklands, basically.
Yeah.
Well, they've only been printed one time.
Yeah, I hope we see a lot more of them in the future because they will always be in demand.
In terms of reprints, the set was a little light. Assassin's Trophy was the big one. It was nice getting some new art there. But it did have a bonus sheet that had a ton of cool reprints, including a very fancy Field of the Dead.
Which is now more expensive now than it was at the time of this.
It was
printing.
22 before it got reprinted, and now it's 27.75.
Yeah.
Just one of those lands, everybody.
I think that just says what the bonus sheet kind of does to prices. It's not necessarily impacting the reprint value.
Yeah.
Well, we also don't get to see the parallel universe where it didn't get reprinted and what its price would have been. Maybe it would have been
That's
35 or 40.
Sure.
So it's just hard to, because it's Field of the Dead. Like they're just going to continue to go index until the end of time.
It's just that good.
Yeah.
Just that good.
We wouldn't have a summary of Murders at Karlov Manor if we didn't mention the Ravnica Glue Edition.
Oh, yeah.
How many of you
Remember
played
that?
I do remember
do
that.
now.
Because whenever I'm deck building and I see a card, then I'm like, what is that? Why is there a big C on it? And why is this weirdly good? Oh, it's Clue Edition.
It's Clue. Why is it super expensive? Oh, nobody opened it.
Nobody opened it. Look, I didn't play Clue that much beforehand, and I'm still not going to play Clue that much afterwards. It's not one of my favorite board games of all time, but I thought it was a cute collaboration for what it's worth.
I agree. I didn't hate the collaboration. I didn't like quite how many new cards were in that product.
Yeah.
There was like a lot of really powerful stuff hiding there, but like you can ignore it if you want, and it was easy to ignore. For
I will say, too, that buying the thing didn't give you all the cards. They included a randomized factor with that
Wait,
as
it didn't?
well.
No.
And
There
that
were-
was
you
a
opened
This is
lot.
how much I know about
you
it.
opened
because,
booster packs.
Yeah,
of
there
it.
was controversy about that as
Wow.
well.
So
Wow.
you like opened a pack and it would
And
be
you don't
like,
even
you
get
got
all
the
the clue cards?
Azorius
You don't get
pack,
all the
and
clue
then
cards,
you get
yeah.
like some of the Azorius.
I mean, are you surprised?
I'm not surprised. Are we weighing that into our grading? Because I wasn't.
I think that's all bundled up in
okay.
Murders at
Yeah,
Karlov.
yeah.
Manor.
Alright.
All right, the showcases, as every set has a bunch of these, there are these magnified cards, the dossier cards, and of course you had regular borderless cards as well.
They did the secret ink foils with these, which I thought were really
Yeah,
cool
those look
on the
kinda cool.
dossiers. You could like,
I
it had
remember
like
those.
secret text on some of them. You know, they tried a bunch of different foil treatments throughout the year. I think this one was one of the like kind of cooler, cuter ones for me.
Yeah.
I want to, before we give our grades, I want to
Yeah.
just touch on the theme of this set, which I think was one of the sort of more panned things about it, which is it was a little weird, a little specific. It was, like you said, detective noir film sort of. We famously did our CSI parody thing for that. And I don't think that CSI is the first thing you think of when you talk about like Magic as
Yeah.
a card game.
That's
so
what we
it
thought of,
seemed
though.
like a weird fit. And I think that might have been one of the reasons why the reception was kind of lukewarm to it.
Yeah. It felt very silly because it was a lot of characters that we know and we know their lore, and suddenly they're a detective.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Duskmourn had a similar problem, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so did a Thunder Junction.
Yeah.
Where it's just like suddenly all these characters we know had this like weird like hat stickered onto their head, and it didn't resonate with people in terms of like what we know of Ravnica. Like, we know Ravnica, it's not full of detectives.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Full
is,
of
like, when they try and
detectives?
do this, where they take like something that's kind of narrow, like a genre of storytelling, and then say, but this whole world is kind of that, or everyone here's a detective, even in this narrow spot.
Yeah.
It's like can't just there be a couple detective characters, and that's like, well, then how do you have detective typo work? I guess I don't know, but they try to do that with New Capenna as well, with like
Yeah,
mob.
at least that was a
It's like
new
the whole
world.
world is mob bosses. Like,
Yeah.
there's got to be a better way to do this that doesn't like strain credibility that far.
Yeah, it's a bit like Rachel said. It's like a little too top down in terms of like, let's create a cool theme, and now everyone's playing dress up.
Yeah, it felt very. I know we'll talk about Thunder Junction in a second, but it felt very. What's the Cowboy World show? Westworld, where like just all of our characters showed up to detective land and were given a detective outfit, and you're now given like canned detective plot.
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't make it better when we have so many universes beyond as well. That just feels like we're entering into more silliness sometimes, and like less based in magic lore, more based in like cool setting. Let's just. Who cares about the guilds so much? Yeah, the guilds match up, but how are we going to force it in these sorts of ways? I don't know. It just feels a little forced.
At least in Westworld, the Western was a world. Like,
Right.
if you went back to the Old West,
Yeah,
that was
detective
what it was
isn't
like.
a world.
That's not a place that's ever existed or makes sense to exist,
Yeah.
right? Sure,
Right.
there's some detectives mixed among normal people, but a place where just everybody is a detective, that doesn't make, like, I don't know, like, that just doesn't seem like a world that would exist
It
or
seems
should.
difficult for a design team to be like, all right, we got to do this in a plane that people know. Okay, sure. And we got to make characters that people know. Okay, sure. And now they're all detective or detective related.
And you're like, wait, what?
It's like, okay, can we have some of them just
Why?
be like on the periphery here?
I wonder, how much of this do you think was a result of the Clue tie-in? Do you think the Clue tie-in came before this
Ooh,
set?
interesting.
Or
Is
do you
Clue
think
a
they
Hasbro
set-
product?
Or do you think
It
they were
is,
doing this
right?
set and they said, oh, well, that would match with Clue?
But that's not like what Clue is about. Clue isn't everyone's a detective.
Right, but I can imagine...
Everyone's a murderer. in
Yeah,
Clue.
yeah.
I'm not saying this happened, right? We
Yeah.
speculated, but
Yeah.
you can imagine a world where they go, we're doing all this Universes Beyond stuff, but what
Yeah.
properties does Hasbro already own
Right.
that we could, do our own Universes Beyond type thing, but it's not a Universes Beyond because we get the tie-in because we don't have to, we don't need to meet with their lawyers in the same way and make
Sure.
a deal. And they probably made a big list of all the properties that they own, and Clue is on that list.
Yeah.
And it's possible that they circled Clue and went, hey, we could do it.
Or we wanted to do a detective thing. I mean, we could probably just read some Morrow blog about it, and they're like, "Oh, Clue, please, do something here with it." And then, yeah, it could force the needle just a little bit more in that direction.
I think that like that could have been the case, but even if that was the case, they could have done a better job.
For sure.
Murder mystery Ravnica sounds cool.
Yeah.
Everyone's a detective Ravnica. I have questions.
That's definitely another place where it could have come from because they're all game designers
Right.
over there, and murder mystery parties
It's
and
fun.
playing werewolf and stuff like that is all sort of related, and those are games that are fun, and so they might have wanted to have some of that
Yeah.
feel. So I could see it. I'm not saying the Clue thing for sure happened. I'm just saying it's possible.
Yeah.
It's also possible that it came from like movie genres, which we'll talk about later, but we very much followed and
Yeah.
are still following the path of like, let's mark off all the movie genres and do a Magic set about those.
Yeah.
This was also one of the lowest performing sets of the year by a long shot. This was in Marrow's State of Design article. He talked about Murders at Karlov Manor, and he was like, "We overdid it." I think he said he would have walked back Detective Typal, I believe, and he said he would have changed the name, which makes sense.
To Markov?
To Markov. He said he would have removed the word murders entirely. Which makes a ton of
definitely-
sense.
And that also affects sales for sure.
Yeah.
Parents aren't going to buy a set necessarily that says murder as the first word.
As the
on
first
it.
word.
for your child's card
yeah,
game.
Yeah.
Would have toned it down.
Unalived at Karlov Manor doesn't have quite the same thing, though.
All right. Let's
Mystery
do
at Karlov Manor.
Yeah,
What is
mystery.
it? I solved
Yeah,
it for
there
you.
you
There,
go.
done.
Yeah, I mean, I
Mystery at
feel
Markov
like
Manor.
Yeah.
like
That's better.
if they had just said like Ravnica a new mystery or Ravnica like
Mystery of mystery.
like the
Alan
mysteries
Ravnica.
of Ravnica
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something like that, or like a mystery in Ravnica. Now we understand what the set is. It's in Ravnica. We've refocused it to like the thing that matters about this set, that it's Ravnica. It's one of their biggest, most popular planes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
the
didn't feel
Karlov
like
Markov
Ravnica.
thing is a real thing too.
It is
It
a
is.
real
which
thing.
feels like a blunder in the naming of it because everyone wanted to call it Markov. It just rolled off the tongue better. We made a joke about it in our video, and we that was one of the biggest responses. People laughed about that joke because they're like, "I say that every time."
Yeah.
And if it's like, if people are already going to call it that, you should think about calling it that, but also like don't call it the other thing that's not what they're automatically going to say.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's
okay,
give some
let's go to
rankings. This is an easy C for me, but closer to C minus, almost a D.
I think I probably would have given this a D. The Surveil lands
Yeah.
bump it for me, and I also did enjoy the limited environment, even though there were some problems with it. There were some fun archetypes that were kind of like,
Yeah.
you could play it for longer than it looked like. So I bumped it to a C.
I did do a D for this one. I didn't think a lot of the mechanics had long-term effect. I thought everything was a little too themed, a little too cute, and the Surveil lands weren't quite enough to save it for me. I thought they did some cool stuff with it, but overall, not enough.
Yeah, not enough.
But 2 C's will round this up to a C.
A C?
For overall from the Command Zone.
I see.
Let's
All
move on
right.
to the next set of the year. It is Fallout.
Time to get Universes Beyond. This came out on March 8th, 2024. So that's 3 sets in 3 months. Are you tired yet? This was a pre-con only environment. So no main set like we're going to be seeing. Nothing that goes into standard. Like I think Final Fantasy is the first one to be doing that. The major mechanics here, we had rad counters, which is like radiation and milling. Energy made a big comeback here, and it was also heralded the beginning of a lot more energy, I think, that has been entering into the format again. Equipment as well, obviously, because it's a video game. Treasure, and then junk tokens, which is sort of like another fun sort of video game-ish tie-in.
I thought junk was a really sweet mechanic. I also really liked rad counters.
Yeah, Rad played really well.
Well,
It
speaking of,
feels-
that's the most built commander is the Wise Mothman.
It is. He's like the number 51 on EDH Rec or something. He's
I was
like,
surprised to see
very
the number
popular.
here. Yeah. It's more built according to EDH Rec than Boya or Boha or Voja or whatever it is.
Voja.
It's also sort of the precon effect where if it's the face commander of a precon, it's
Right.
going to have more deck lists online. So I don't know how realistic that comparison is directly.
And there was less overall to choose from, right? MKM has a lot more legendary creatures, so
Right.
it gets diluted a little bit. But still, that's a high number.
Yeah, Dogmeat also was a favorite, I think, for a lot of players. Just it's a dog on the card that's commander, and it's equipment.
And
themed.
Dogmeat's a funny name.
Dogmeat's a very funny name.
Most popular new cards, Nuka-Cola Vending Machine.
That's right.
This card's cracked.
Yeah, card's nuts.
Codsworth, Handy Helper,
Equipment guy.
yep, and Power
And
Fist.
Auras.
Yeah, and there's also like pre-war battleware. I think there was actually a lot of like sneaky, hidden, cool commander cards in here that played towards. I think the energy thing is not to be discounted at all. Energy is constantly needing more cards that do energy things, and so it's actually made it quite viable as a result of this and Modern Horizons, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, we've seen an explosion in energy, which makes energy less of like the same pile of cards that it always is, and it's becoming a lot more of a standalone mechanic for better or for worse.
Still can't convince me to build an energy deck yet, though. I'm gonna wait.
Most valuable reprint in this entire set was Heroic Intervention, which was $12, now $10. But they did do that bonus sheet as well. This is they were available in collector packs for Fallout. They were the ones with the bobbleheads on them, and Ravages of War.
This was a big one.
$275.
P3K card, I
Yeah.
think, right?
All the way down to 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
But you
it's
have to
just,
have a Fallout guy on it.
Yeah.
because it's just
The original's
it's just
still up
Wrath of
there.
God. It's not like people actually needed it. It
It's
was
not Wrath of God, it's Armageddon.
Oh, Armageddon.
Armageddon,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
It's just Armageddon is what I meant to
We
say.
saw
It's
similar-
not like people really needed it or wanted to play it. That was just a high price tag because not very many had been made because
Yes.
it was Port of Three Kingdoms before. Yeah.
Which is notably one of the least printed sets of all time hard to get sets.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like there was a lot of people being like, I wish I had this to play with. It was a
Yeah.
collectability.
We've seen a couple of
Price tag,
examples
yeah.
of that in the past few years, I think.
This was an interesting set for me because I'm not a big Fallout fan, and there's no limited environment for it. So I didn't really play with the cards all that often. I bought a couple of singles and put them into my decks. And I think that's what makes this set really interesting is I didn't play it and I really wasn't interested in it and I wasn't going to build it. But there are a few cards in here, both in the like the Mothman with the rad counter stuff and the junk tokens in the Dogmeat deck that I was like, these cards are sweet. Mechanically, these are very interesting. And mechanically, I want to like reach in and pluck a couple of cards out of it, despite not understanding the joke or the reference there, which makes it a little bit more compelling in my book.
Yeah, I agree with that. I almost built, not the Wise Mothman, but the other Sultai commander that was in there.
Oh, he's cool. The Master Transcendent.
Yeah, the Master Transcendent. But ultimately, I wasn't very impressed by this set. I really thought that the special treatments were just ugly.
Sure.
The ones that look like the Fallout video game just look like...
See, I liked those.
It just, I don't know, it's just when they take it too far from the traditional frame and then becomes the whole thing, it just to me really felt off.
Oh, you're talking about the like Pip-Boy frames.
Yeah, the Pip-Boy frames.
I didn't love those.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
That to me just like immediately turned me off. And I did not want to buy any of it. It really didn't feel like it was worth it. Didn't want to open any of those treatments either. So I think for me, the set was largely just okay. I think I have Codsworth in like 2 decks, and it's pre-World Formal War as well. So that is like, okay, if I'm putting cards from this set into somewhere else, that gives me a little bit more excitement about it.
Josh?
I liked this set. I liked the pre-con environment. I played with those pre-cons in an environment for a number of games, and I usually don't do that, and found that environment to be fun. I thought that the energy stuff that you mentioned earlier was a big boon because, and this is partially because stuff we got later this year, but energy has really become, like you said, a viable commander deck. And by viable, I don't just mean you can build an energy deck, but you have different directions you can now go a little bit. Not a ton, but we're getting there, right? And I thought that the adding energy stuff to the format and making that more viable was a bonus. We haven't mentioned it, but they did a really good timing with this where it tied in with the start of the show, and the show was very good.
The show was great.
Yeah, the show was really good, which I'm not a big Fallout person. I've played a couple of the games. I don't think I've completed any of them. So I'm not super steeped in the lore or anything, but having the show kind of be good and watchable did make the cards a little more fun for me. So I had some frame of reference for what at least some of them were. Like you said, there were a number that I have seen in many games at this point that are playable. So I had a generally positive outlook of it, although I don't think it was like the best set ever or anything. Yeah. There's no limited environment, which could be an upside or downside because it can't take away from it, in my view. And then I don't care about treatments and stuff at all. I'm just not that kind of player. So I didn't even notice. Now that when you start talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I can picture that in my head, but it doesn't, in my mind, like weigh in heavily to.
Does it hurt your psyche when you think about it? Because it does hurt mine. I'm like,
I just think there's so many treatments now that they just it's just gray morass of nothingness to me. And so I'm like, whatever. There's a lot of treatments. There's a lot of treatments of everything, and my mind just goes blank on that stuff. It's just like, what does card do?
Yeah.
Where did you land on a grade for it?
So I gave it a B. I thought I would be generally like, yeah, it was a good set.
Okay.
Yeah. I think generally if you're into Fallout, you're like land on a like, that was a pretty acceptable version of it. And yeah, I think I'm sold on a B for it because it was funny and the card designs were interesting and it did make me look at it even though I fully didn't care about Fallout, and that is not the case for the other Universes Beyond set this year.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to move up to a B here. I was at a C. Jimmy?
I'm going to stick at a C. I do like that energy was given a boost. I do like that equipment decks were given cool things. But with Assassin's Creed 2, I'm like, there's just a lot of support. The more video games we do, the more equipment support we're going to see.
That is fair, yeah.
I don't think that really pushes the...
Yeah, I don't think equipment needed anything at this point.
Yeah. So I'm going to give this a C. It was my least engaged with set, I think, this year outside of a few cards.
All right. That means our final Command Zone rating for Fallout is a B.
Let me ask the two of you, because I don't know that I weighed this into my grade, but for Universes Beyond, how many people that were like into Fallout but didn't know much about Magic, do you have any read on that community and how this affected them? Because I think we can say like Warhammer was in this mold, but probably in the S or at least A tier.
Yeah.
Because the design was awesome, but we also had we heard a lot of chatter and had a lot of experience with like that actually affecting people trying out Magic. Might be because Warhammer is sort of more closely related to, or maybe there's so much Universes Beyond now that chatter just doesn't rise above the sort of din of everything else to be noticeable anymore. But I don't know. What was your read on whether or not Fallout was successful in what Universes Beyond wants to be successful at, which is sort of getting some of that other community to try out Magic?
My read is only anecdotal, and that I've heard of a couple of people who came through Fallout to play Magic and are now playing with the Fallout decks. Sebastian, who's an editor at The Office, he or on the podcast, has talked about a friend who only plays Fallout decks and will play Commander with them now because of the Fallout product. And I think that example is helpful, but it also feels to me stronger than the impact that Doctor Who had, which I think I had negative connotations towards. Cool card design, but a mess in terms of decks. This one feels much more cohesive, much more playable. It feels like a much better gateway for getting players into Magic.
I think it's much more, for me, the impact was with the Kyle Hills. The people that already loved Fallout and already played Magic were excited to see it and excited to be in that world. I haven't heard anything really about other players that came into the game as a result. But I think if you liked Fallout already and you saw this set, it was exciting for you. But it wasn't necessarily pulling a Fallout player into this. And I think part of it has to do with, like, Warhammer is a physical game. You play it in person, you paint your miniatures, just like you collect your cards and you sleeve them up. Fallout and digital games are going to, I think, have that issue constantly, which is, if you're a computer game player, you're kind of a computer game player. You're not even a console player necessarily, right? There's there are stark divisions between the types of games and what platforms they're played on. So, if you're a Hearthstone player, different story. You probably enjoy Magic more than your regular person. But Fallout didn't feel like it had as much of a crossover. Final Fantasy is another example I keep bringing up. That understandably makes more sense. A lot of Japanese culture is also steeped in playing card games. There's a big card game scene over there. And just the type of games that Final Fantasy are, I think, lend itself more to players that would enjoy a Magic environment as opposed to Fallout, which is like, this is a real world. It's kind of based in reality. It just has all these funky things that have happened because of radiation.
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting metric to think about when we're ranking the sets
that
I didn't really weigh. But I also got the feeling that Fallout was like, medium on the, like, did it pull people in? I would love to know the actual numbers, because it could be that Wizards was like, no, this is actually a big time success now. Yeah, I wonder if they're able to...
the fact that the Mothman was number 51 on EDH Rec says a lot to me. That was the most built commander of the entire year in terms of face commanders and precons.
Right, but it's impossible to measure how many of those are people that already owned commander decks and were building commander decks, and how many of those were people that were like, that was one of their first ones and that kind of got them in. And that's, I think, a metric by which Universes Beyond... Obviously, Wizards cares about total sales, and we know Universes Beyond does it really, really well because they keep saying it over and over. But I'm unclear about how many of those are good for the player base, which is like, we want new players coming in, so there's just more people playing the game. Did it accomplish that? Which I think we can say it feels like, and we don't have real evidence, Warhammer, Lord of the Rings, some other past sets did. Doctor Who maybe did not. And I agree with you. It felt like it kind of didn't. Fallout, I'm just not sure where it falls in there. I didn't have a good read just on sort of, the chatter we hear. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
My gauge is that if it's a strategy game in real life that you're playing like Warhammer, or it's a book that you've read that's fantasy, that's going to have a hard crossover as opposed to a computer game or anything else that's like more...
So do you think it has anything to do with the actual card design or anything, or once they've chosen what the property is, it's pretty much done?
I think it's the property. The property is the main thing, and how well... Because the Venn diagram of people that play the original property and their likelihood to play a physical card game is really... Because this was not an arena, right?
Yeah.
It really is that sliver. And I think it's a much bigger sliver when it comes to Lord of the Rings, which just already feels like elves, dragons, all those things are in that world already, as opposed to this, like the crossover is like humans and zombies, right?
Yeah.
So, because I look at the Wise Mothman, and I'm like, that could have been a character in Bloomburrow, the Wise Mothman.
Her example of Doctor Who kind of backs up what you're saying, which is...
Yeah, and Doctor Who...
It didn't seem like there was a lot of crossover, and it didn't feel like it actually created a lot of new players. So a lot of people maybe bought it to put on their shelf because they liked Doctor Who, but did they open them and actually play a game of Magic? Didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it'll be interesting. Final Fantasy will be on Arena, hypothetically. So
yes, it has to be if it's in Standard.
I was going to say. So...
will that be more like Warhammer, or will that be more like Fallout?
I think 1,000%.
Or more like a
Rings.
set we're about to talk about that comes out in... it's a few from here, but we're going to talk about it after this break, because we're going to go to our sponsors. We'll be right back.
All right, bye-bye.
This show is sponsored by Liquid IV.
Season's greetings, cool cats! This year, I, Jetmir, Nexus of Revels, will throw the most perfect holiday party! This whole crime family will come together as the Halo Fountain! Well, look, We may have used up all of our angel juice at my Meowloween masquerade, but fear not. I found a new source of hydration to keep everyone fully pumped. Liquid IV. It's the best way to stay hydrated through the holidays with 8 vitamins and nutrients plus 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. 1 stick of Liquid IV with 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone, so you can tear, pour, and live more. Never let the party leave you parched again, whether you need to stay vigilant on Commander Night, trample the dance floor, or double strike a pose on the runway. Proper hydration is a must. Halo was good, but this pina colada flavor is simply divine. Hey, how do they make this stuff?
No angels were harmed in the making of Liquid IV.
Stay hydrated through the holidays with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code COMMAND at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code COMMAND at liquidiv.com.
And then I will play Brainstorm, which lets me draw 3 cards and puts my storm count to 8.
Oh no, this turn is taking forever. He could be going for like 10 more minutes and I'm starving.
10 minutes? That's more than enough time to prepare a delicious meal from Factor.
Holy crap, how are we hearing each other's thoughts?
Remember, last turn I played telepathy.
Oh, right.
Anyway, with Factor you can get fresh, chef-crafted meals delivered straight to your door that are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. And they have a ton of options to choose from each week, so you'll never get bored. Unlike this term.
That's right. No prep, cooking, or cleanup means I could be done eating before this storm kill hits 30.
Exactly. And Factor is way healthier
And
and
I will
cheap.
destroy telepathy.
Cheaper than takeout. And it tastes better too.
What are you guys talking about?
Nothing.
Ooh, yeah, imagine if I was chowing down on their delicious spinach and mushroom chicken thighs right now.
Hey, were you guys talking telepathically without me again?
Maybe.
No. We love Factor, and we know you will too. Get 50% off and free shipping on your first Factor box using our link. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code with your phone. It directly supports the channel and helps us make more content. So click the link or scan the code and start eating better with Factor.
Then I will cast a Fabricate.
Jordan, tell the truth. Is your turn almost over?
Yeah.
Really?
No.
All right, it's chicken time.
I'm going to.
And our new merch selection is live.
That is a good feeling. Man, Jimmy, remember how long we just had no merch at all?
Oh yeah, I mean for years if we even wanted to sell a t-shirt, I'd have to enter every order and address in manually, and who's got that kind of time?
Seriously, we would not have had time to do the podcast, much less game nights.
But now we've got Command Zone shirts, hats, wall scrolls, and even our own custom sleeves, all thanks to Shopify.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. They give you everything you need to get your product in the hands of your fans no matter where you are as a business.
Whether you're a fledgling YouTube channel or a global brand like Allbirds, Shopify is there with the best converting checkout system on the planet, turning more browsers into buyers while leaving you free to focus on your product.
Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify.
Exactly. Okay, I'm gonna buy a t-shirt.
Jimmy, you're a host. You could just have a shirt.
Yeah, but I like getting packages. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/TCZ, all lowercase.
Go to shopify.com/TCZ to upgrade your selling today. Again, shopify.com/TCZ.
Yes! I win! Probably. Anyway.
Probably. What's going on?
I just goldfished a huge turn on ARCHIDEKT. Check it out, they've got the best playtester in the business. Playing and tapping your cards is as simple as clicking them. Everything goes right where you want it, but you can drag things by hand and group them together in different ways too. Then there's easy shortcut keys for things like making copies, sending cards between zones, and starting the next turn.
Nice, so this is a Traxo. All that proliferating's gotta take a while.
It doesn't actually. Just right click and hit proliferate all counters.
Oh wow, yeah, you probably do win.
I think so.
ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/commandzone.
Welcome back, everybody. We are ranking all of the sets from 2024, and up next is Outlaws of Thunder Junction. This came out on April 19th. This is the 4th set in 4 months. The major mechanics here were plot, and crimes, outlaws, which was sort of weird and vague, deserts,
Yay.
treasures, mounts, and spree. The most built commander from this main set was Obeka, Splitter of Seconds.
Josh played that.
Josh played it.
Yeah,
It was a very cool deck. I played against it a number of times.
Yeah, gotta kill Obeka.
The most popular new cards in this set were Insatiable Avarice, which is a spree card, the
Tutor.
Entomb one.
Yeah.
Return the Favor, which was also a spree card. Bristly Bill and Lava Spur boots.
Yeah.
And then the big score, Roadside Saddle.
Sure.
And it also had some popular new cards in Commander, Sword of Wealth and Power, Vault-Born Tyrant, and Generous Plunderer have all seen a ton of play, including in our content.
Yeah.
Biggest reprint here was Terror of the Peaks.
This needed one so badly.
Woo! It was $41 all the way down to $16.51. Thank goodness.
The bonus sheet also had Prismatic Vista, which doesn't really change the price, went from $24.50 up to $25. This is another one of those lands where we should be getting these as promo cards, box toppers, store prizes. It's just very, very played, very good.
Yeah, bonus sheet just isn't going to move the number there.
No, never. Big Score also had the Grand Abolisher, which is just a thorn in the side of many a player, but very good. Was $10, now down to $6.75.
Yay.
Yay.
This also had the breaking news sheet. So it had the bonus sheet, the big score, and the breaking news cards, which were all crimes. And they had the like big prosperity at the top.
Yeah, I actually like this
They
frame
would look like a newspaper,
lot.
right?
Yeah. Wanted, breaches, Yeah.
You can't put words at the top of a Magic card that isn't the name of the card.
Yes, you can,
cannot.
and they did, Rachel.
It was a bad...
I'm going to play Wanted. Wait.
All of them said prosperity. If you lay them out, like when you're showing your like draft deck or something like that, they just say prosperity at the
that's
top.
funny.
It's such a bad design for a Magic card.
I don't see that stuff, as I established earlier.
Yeah.
So
Just
instead
the
of
morass
giving
of the way
it's a
cards
morass
look.
of stuff. Yeah, they're all kind of brownish and grayish.
What's it
and
do?
stuff.
What's it do? It kills a thing? Cool.
I thought the design of it was clever, but yeah, I agree. The words at the top, prosperity, not so hot. For me, this was very similar to Markov Manor in terms of like, what are they doing? They're
Karlov.
Karlov. Oh my gosh.
That was real.
They're just putting silly hats on characters, and now they're all thieves, and they're working together. And yeah, there are some of them that are bad, and some of them that are more good. And Kellen is back for the 80th time, doing something new.
Oh, this was back to back with Karlov Manor. This was so bad.
Yeah.
Doing like, and we'll take off our detective hat and,
And
put on
the
a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
And it's like there was a bunch of character crossovers.
Yeah.
Rakdos was in both, I think.
Yep, Rakdos was in both. You're correct.
It's just like, what?
He's got wings. He can fly.
What are we
He'll make it over.
doing?
I do think this was much better than Karlov Manor, though, in terms of just like, okay, I get it, and I'm happy to do it and play it.
This theme worked much better for me, just overall. And I think the only, like, the big hit to the theme in my mind was that it felt very similar to Karlov Manor, which was a bad execution of this. And I think this could have been a successful execution of, like, silly everybody's in a new world together thing if we hadn't just had this sort of weird, false detective situation.
Yeah.
It's a little like the thing I was saying earlier, where if you just do the same thing too often, the novelty of it wears off, and then you're just left with sort of numbness and you don't care about that much. And so this is the type of thing I agree that they could do once in a while, but feels like they did it twice in a row here and have been doing this kind of a lot. And then it's just, of course, lukewarm reception because it doesn't. It could be like a nice, like, oh, this is new, this is a little different, but it didn't feel different. It
would almost
felt
be
similar,
okay
and that's boring.
If they did it and the characters knew almost that it was kind of silly, and then the characters themselves were playing into it because they knew that, oh, this set only comes along, right? A little more meta about it.
Sure.
But now it's like, no, everyone's taking themselves very seriously here. Tiny Bones is a burglar thief.
I think we learned this with the unsets, kind of, right? Where, like, when they come around once every 10 years, there's a lot more excitement when they come around once every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Jace is
And we
an
just
astronaut.
did this. It's
Cool.
it's not cool enough. The novelty factor is really what makes it successful. And if you don't wait enough time, then there's no novelty because we just did it. So yeah.
I think there's a lot of positives about Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I think the mechanics in particular were way better than Karlov Manor in my mind. I think Spree was awesome. I thought mounts were very fun. I thought crimes was interesting, and there's a lot of different ways to apply them. I like plot was sort of fun. It doesn't really impact Commander all that much, but I do think it made for sort of an interesting choice in the limited environment. So
Limited here was decent.
Yeah, I thought it was fun.
Yeah. And like more desert support was fun, and a slightly different style of deserts was pretty cool. So I thought the mechanics when this one will last much longer, and I think we'll just make more commander decks because they're much less narrow applications in terms of the mechanics.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think we should also probably mention that this is the first time we've seen a new character that is now a prominent member of the Magic lore verse. It's Loot.
Oh,
Loot showed
that's
up.
true.
And Loot is now Magic's fluffy, cute version of Fibblethip.
Yeah.
Did we need a cute mascot?
Cute is debatable. Cute is debatable.
Cute is debatable. And I like that after all that vaulting and storming and getting into that cool big score, it's just a fluffy little guy.
It's just a little guy.
Yeah.
The treasure was the friends we met along the way.
Yeah, and the fact that we had to be cowboys for a hot second there, too.
Speaking of the big score, I do want to give Wizards credit. The big score was originally designed as an Aftermath style set to be released in smaller packs after Outlaws of Thunder Junction. They recognized how bad Aftermath went after March of the Machine, and we're like, well, we can't do that
Just
again.
put it in the set.
And just smashed it all together. And it did make the sets, the packs themselves, and the limited environment kind of wild.
Yeah, it's a good
where
point.
It was like the big score and the breaking news sheets made it for really balmy, and there was a couple of cards where you're like, oh, I'm just playing against Oko or Vaultborn Tyrant or like all of these bananas Magic cards.
Yeah, for limited, I enjoyed it much more than Karlov Manor. I thought it was just overall pretty fun, and I was okay with the theming of it. But when I started watching, like I didn't watch the Cinematics until way after, and then I was like, what the heck? This is a little bit on the nose here for me.
Yeah. I think as a set, I'm generally positive on Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I don't think it's going to be like a beloved thing that we should return to all the time. I settled on a B for it.
Yeah, I was also a B.
I was also a B too, but now I'm kind of thinking about it. I think this gets a B for me because there was so much sunlight in the card art. It was just brighter and happier.
The vibes were better?
Yeah, vibes were just better.
B for vibes.
And I was happier. Yeah, I was happier to play this than I was the gloomy or, the murders at Karlov Manor. So.
Yeah, it's interesting how I was saying that. Yeah, I found that too when I was weighing the rankings and stuff, was like the vibes and the theme kind of did weigh into it more than I think it does when I think about actually playing it.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay.
B overall from the Command Zone.
B.
Let's go to the next set, which was Modern Horizons 3. This was released on June 14th, so we got a bit of a break in May. There was no set release. Oof. The major mechanics were Eldrazi, Energy, and Modified. The most built commander was Ululek, Fused Atrocity, which had about 10,300 decks on EDH Rec. And I've seen a bunch of Ululeks out there.
Yeah.
The most popular new cards were MDFCs. There was a bunch in this set.
Yeah.
So many.
It's so good.
Yeah, notably Sink into Stupor, Fell the Profane, and then other cards, Shifting Woodland, Fanatic of Ronus, which is an amazing card, Urza's Cave.
Yeah, I mean, I think this list doesn't really do justice
There's a
to
lot more,
the
but yeah.
pure
lot
amount
more.
of popular cards.
You could literally list almost all the MDFCs.
Yeah, you make a powerful Eternal product, and we're going to have a lot of Commander cards out of it.
Yep.
So, and yes, just about every MDFC is like fully playable, especially the untapped MDFCs.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's to the point now where I can't remember the names of all the MDFCs that exist, so I'm like, which one is that?
Witch Enchanter.
What's the other side of that one? It's the whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Most valuable reprints, Phyrexian Tower.
Finally!
Yeah, was
It's the big
reprinted.
one.
It went from $38 all the way down to $12 now. I think one thing about reprints and the changes in prices we should note is like this is now 6 months ago, whereas stuff from Karlov Manor was a year ago. So yeah, big difference. Allied Fetches were reprinted.
The least excited I've been about a Fetchland reprint ever, I think, was this set. It was
weird.
Okay, yeah, sure, cool.
It's good though when we got to the point
thank
where
goodness.
it's not like exactly.
Yeah.
Medallions were reprinted, which people have been asking for.
Yeah, this was their second reprint in a year because they were in Commander Masters as well. This one hit their prices harder than Commander Masters did.
Modern Horizons 3 might be their most cracked set, I think, for sure. It felt like a ton of packs were being opened everywhere by everyone.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of product opened.
And then on the bonus sheet was Solitude, which went from $22 all the way down to $6.
Nice.
So again, the reprints from this set had a pretty good effect on prices, which is nice.
Overall, this just had like old border product frames and then the full art cards. It wasn't anything crazy fancy in terms of treatments.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
Because it was crazy fancy when it came to mechanics.
Yeah.
These cards were wild and powerful, and we don't have to talk about what they did to other formats because we're the Commander.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does feel like for the first time, though, Modern Horizons 3 did not have the warpingness as powerful as 1 and 2. It was still up there, and I think there are still cards that people are not happy about.
Yeah, in terms of Commander.
Yeah.
I think Modern
Commander,
Horizons
I think, was
3
fine.
has decimated Modern. just wrecked it.
As every Modern Horizons product has kind of done.
Yeah, they suddenly have a Boros Energy deck that they cannot ban something from because it doesn't hurt it. Like it's wild. But we're not the Modern Zone. So we get to talk about Modern Horizons positively, generally.
I thought this set was great. I really enjoyed drafting this set. I enjoyed opening the product. I enjoyed putting the MDFCs in my deck. And just, again, any time that they do that, which is like, Jimmy, you can replace a land with one of these, you've got my number. I'm in. Big
Jimmy
time.
out there running 28 lands.
I don't even have lands in my deck anymore. They're all NDFCs or
Goblin Turbelcher, new staple.
Yeah. People already suspected that about you, Jimmy, but thanks for confirming.
Now they know.
Yeah.
Now they know. It's been confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, these powerful sets and these Horizon sets are so good because they can just do a one-off of this mechanic if they want to. The shackles are really off for the design team, and they can just give. If they think of one good card that would be cool in Commander, they can just give us that card without thinking like, how does that fit into a precon deck or everything else that's going on.
Yeah, it's 5 mana.
They think a little bit about the draft environment, which I agree. This one was good. The fact that Gruul was maybe a little too good hurt it a little, but it was still a lot of fun. If you talk about how much any set that came out this year changed or upgraded or optimized your current decks, how many cards slotted in, only the Surveil lands really could compare with the MDFCs because we just got so many MDFCs. And it just is kind of, objectively correct, in quotes, to just replace a certain amount of lands you're running with some of these MDFCs. There are just so many now, and so many of them are so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with this set just being overwhelmingly positive for Commander, with the exception of Nadu.
Yep.
Oh, right. This
which
was the Nadu
certainly
set.
was from this set, but handled itself relatively swiftly.
Yeah. Didn't even need the ban, to be honest, but yeah.
It's just great reprints for us. It's just powerful new cards that don't necessarily raise the power level of your deck, just make them more functional, which is cool. It had a lot of sweet lands in it, which is always, obviously the MDFCs, but I liked the,
Shifting Woodland, really
Shifting
powerful.
Woodlands is cool. The red one, the Cave.
That gives
exerts? 1 to 2 things haste.
Yeah.
Arena of Glory.
Arena of Glory.
All of those just go right into decks and make your deck more flexible and more fun to play. So for me, Modern Horizons was an A. It can't be an S because of the asterisk of what it did to the rest of the world, I think.
Yeah, I forgot about Nadu. I completely blanked that this was the Nadu set. Yeah.
They are glad
that
you did.
I mean, it pretty much didn't exist to me the moment it was printed. And if I ever saw it across the table, I'd be like, please play another deck. Before it got banned, obviously. Yeah. I gave this an A as well. Easy A for me.
Yeah, I give it an A. I'm trying to think of why I didn't give it an S. And I think to be an S, you almost have to have the component of the setting or the vibe of the set really stands out as something you remember. Because Modern Horizons 3, I bet in 10 years, I'll be like, is that 2, 3? Was that 4?
They all mush together.
Which is not a huge downside for it. I mean, it's still a good set and everything. But I think in order to be S tier, you really have to be a set where I'm like, I can remember a lot about it. And this is going to sort of slide in with the rest of them as like one of the better pieces, but it'll be hard to tell the difference, like I said, in 10 years. So
yeah.
Great,
Tons of
really good set
on the other side.
Really good set.
Yeah, exactly.
A overall from the Command Zone.
All right, let's talk about another set that starts with the letter A.
Assassin's Creed.
Not really a set, really. It was a
set-ish.
Yeah, there was a collection of cards.
A Wii set.
This was released in July 5th, 2024. So we're up to 6 sets, or 5 sets, or 6 sets in 7 months. The major mechanics here were free running, which is a sort of a way to cheat stuff out. If you attack.
If you connected with your commander or with an assassin, you can cast things for less.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
Prowl-esque.
It's Prowl-esque.
Yeah, Prowl-esque. Yeah.
Sorry.
Historic mattered. We had a lot of assassins, and we had a lot of pirates, too.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were a lot of assassins.
I would say too many assassins, if I'm honest.
Kind of the name of the
It's
world.
called Assassin's Creed, so I don't think we're getting around it.
Assassins, every single assassin they created was like, if you have assassins, do more assassin.
Yeah.
All your assassins are bigger.
Assassinate.
When your assassins hit assassin.
Yep.
Yeah. The most built commander was Ezio Auditore de Firenze, which is the main character from 2, I think. There were 8,000 decks of this built on EDH Rec when we checked.
Which was the lowest number we've seen by a decent amount.
Yes, for a good reason. This set was just okay. Most popular new cards, though, this is my favorite card, maybe of the year.
Yeah.
Of them. It's Brotherhood Regalia.
Yep.
It's just a great unblockable way to make your commander unblockable, very cheap equip cost. There was Excalibur, Sword of Eden, which is hilarious. A 12-mana sword that can cast often for free.
I've seen a lot more of this card than I thought we would.
Yeah, I've been looking at it for a long time. I'm like, this card is just kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's the only cool thing about the set, I think, outside of Brotherhood Regalia. And then Overpowering Attack, which was used by D on our episode to great effect, which is just a really cheap way to get another attack in because of the free running cost.
Yeah. Big reprint in Sword of Feast and Famine. Predictably, it did. I mean, it did something to the price, I guess.
Yeah, it cut it almost in half.
It went from $38 to $20. That seems bananas to me. Was it reprinted somewhere else? No, I don't think so.
I'm just, I don't know if it, I don't think it was, but that's almost in half.
That's really significant.
We've seen a lot of cards similar to Sword of Feast and Famine go up in price after the reprint. Again, this was July, so it's closer to now than some of those others. But still, that has to be seen as a positive. Right?
That is definitely a positive. I just, when I was reading it, I assumed it did nothing. And then I looked up and was like, oh.
Yeah. I will say, though, that this is the only set that I bought a little bit of this year and was immensely disappointed with when I opened the product.
Yeah.
Because there was really nothing in it. And the packs were so thin that you open it and you're like, and I'm through the pack. And I don't think anything excited me when I
and I'm looking at the same cards over and over after a while.
It felt like the aftermath type
yeah.
effect. Yeah. So it definitely, for me, was a big disappointment of a set. It really didn't feel like there was anything in this set that impressed me.
Cover of Darkness is all the way down to $4.50. So these reprints did take a chunk out of some very expensive cards.
Because there was a high likelihood you would open it compared to other sets.
There was also Black Market Connections is all the way down to $9 if you get it in the Assassin's Creed printing.
Yep.
So it had some very strong effects on reprints overall, which is interesting because this is the only product I was actively telling people not to open.
Yeah.
Most of the time I'm like, yeah, it's fun. It's fun to open packs, go nuts. But when my friends showed up with a collector booster of Assassin's Creed, I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? You're just going to get 4 legendaries that you do not care about.
Yeah.
Well, and also going back to what I was asking about Fallout, if you sort of try and get a read on, like, did this do the job of getting new players that are, didn't play Magic but are interested in Assassin's Creed to try Magic for the first time? And it feels hard to imagine that a set constructed and structured in this way is going to do that because of the way the packs are construed, right? Like, how is somebody supposed to get into Magic opening packs that only have a couple of cards in them and it's just the same 80 cards or whatever it is total?
Yeah.
A pre-con environment makes sense. And this is just a weird way to pull off Universes Beyond to me. It feels like a couple of years ago, they were pretty sure this like small booster pack thing for Aftermath was going to, because we know from Thunder Junction they were going to do it.
Yeah.
And in other places. And they were so dead wrong about that this is just still paying the price for that. But so anyway, I just think it's a failure on so many levels. It's also just none of the cards are as cool or as exciting, besides Brotherhood Regalia, I would say, as a lot of the cards that were in Fallout.
Mechanically, this set was boring.
Yeah, so it was even just sort of mechanically like a dud. Yeah, so speaking of dud, I gave it a D.
I gave it a D.
All around, I thought this was kind of close to a failure. I mean, this is as close as I came to an F.
This is by far my most disappointing set of the year,
Basically, me giving it a D, because I gave it a D as well, was only because I don't benefit from the joy that this is Assassin's Creed. So I have to recognize that there are people that were super stoked about this deck, or about this set.
Were there
built,
though?
Yeah, I mean, like,
I think D was reasonably.
Damon
Does that mean that
Jonathan
no Universes Beyond could ever be an F?
I don't. The fact that the reprints,
unless the cards are
I
just
feel like the
abysmal.
amount of reprints and the impacts that they had on it do justify not giving this an F.
I was pretty close to an F on it, but
Yeah.
Opening it was miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that to me is like you're actually doing yourself a disservice if one of the most fun parts for a lot of players for Magic is the cracking of packs and getting cool stuff, and you diminish that plus try to get new players in at the same time. It's like you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Or you're getting assassinated without realizing it.
We comfortable with the D for this one?
It's a D.
All right, let's move
dismal
on to Bloomburrow. On the other side of the coin.
Yep.
Bloomburrow came out August 2nd, 2022. The major...
2024.
It came out 2 years ago.
2024. It came out 2 years ago.
May as well be 2
What
years.
happened? Rachel got into time machine
I'm
between.
sorry. I said 2013 the other day. It's like, we're just in college? Like, what? That's so long ago.
2013.
I have a brain worm. The major mechanics for Bloomburrow were Gift, which I loved, Offspring, which I loved, Prowess, which always makes for a fun set. There was food, there was typal stuff, there was Scavenge, which was sort of weird.
Scavenge.
Valiant, which was heroic-ish.
Yep.
And then Expend, which was...
How much mana are you paying this
Did you
time?
spend mana? Good.
Good.
Then we can give you stuff.
How about the reward? The most built commander is a fun one. It's Flubs the Fool.
Yeah, the box topper.
Yeah, unfortunately, not that many decks, though. Less than Ezio, 7,500 decks-ish on EDH Rec.
That surprises
This is a
me.
dilution, though. Dilution, I think.
Yeah, but that's
There was a lot
wild.
of choices, so
Yeah.
not everybody coalesced around any single one.
Yeah. And Flubs, everybody wanted to build. I
Yes.
wanted to build it. AD built it. 2 other people in our play group built it. Like, Flubs was popular.
It's one of those decks, though, that I think once you build it and try it, you're like, I don't know if I want to play this anymore as well.
Yeah.
I felt so. A lot of people did the whole round trip on it. This looks so cool. Can't wait to do it. Why am I doing this? Oh,
Yep.
gosh, never mind.
I
Well,
built
and these-
2 deck lists, Goldfish a few times, and was like, oh, this is not fun. And took it apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these numbers would have the same thing as the reprint value, which is like this was released in August, so it hasn't had as much time to accrue as
Right.
the other ones. Sure.
True.
as something from MKM, let's say.
Most popular new cards in this set was 3 Tree City, a land that taps for mana for the number of cards that share a type. Patchwork Banner is 3 mana rock with an anthem effect on it. Dawn's
also very
Truce is a white heroic intervention-ish.
So good.
And Caretaker's Talent, which is another one that cares about when you make tokens and can copy your tokens. Most valuable reprint here was Fabled Passage, was 6 down to 4. I like to see Fabled Passage reprinted as much as possible. We'd like a bigger ticket item there, but that's okay. And the bonus sheet had Manor.
Yeah, one of those just not reprinted cards ever. This one had a huge drop.
It was
no one
$38
plays
and now it is $5.
It's like Ravages of War, right? Where it's like,
It just wasn't printed that much.
but
and
nobody really wants to play it, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
except
mean,
the Marinara
Rat
fanatic.
players rejoice.
Yeah.
I by no one, I mean, it doesn't, like, you might want one
It's not a
in your
cyclonic.
collection.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to
It's
have
not
it
an
in
every
maybe
deck
for your
card,
one
yeah.
rat deck,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's it.
Yes. So that was Bloomburrow. Of course, this one was soft and fuzzy and Redwall-ish.
Yep.
I think the theme was overwhelmingly popular and a success.
Yeah, to me that was legitimately. I only think the theme was the most positive thing for me personally. I had a dismal time playing limited. I thought opening product was not fun because the value was just not there. If we're talking about the most valuable reprint being Fabled Passage,
Yeah.
that to me is like, okay, all right, well, what else is in here? I do like fuzzy, cute creatures. I loved Redwall. I think the theme for me is by far like the shining spot of this. And I will say, bringing new players into the game, this had to be the biggest set of the year for that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I agree. The limited environment was very mid. It was fine, but yeah, it's not one of those sets you want to draft 30 times or anything like
No.
that. But I thought they were smart in how they positioned this set, and it is and anytime you're gonna have a typal set, so a set that's really interested with creature types like this, it's not going to necessarily have a huge amount of appeal for like really enfranchised players because it is that is just naturally a little bit of a paint by numbers strategy, which isn't complicated, so it doesn't tickle the brain of really experienced players as much. But it's really good for new players because it is an entry level sort of complexity mechanic that you can really relate to. You understand how it works. Oh, if it says squirrels, then I kind of want it and I want to look at it, and it makes deck building a lot easier for new players. So to me, this had sort of the opposite problem of Doctor Who or something like that, where it was a really good idea for a theme of a set, and they also executed in a way that took advantage of the fact that it was going to be appeal to newer players. And to me, that's a really big success to get the community excited about it, get people who aren't playing the game excited about it. It is not and none of that is based on like an outside IP, or at least not directly. And, that's a pretty big windfall. To have your biggest set of the year and the thing that most excited within your community and outside of your community is something that fits all of those pieces. So, yeah, I thought it was a pretty big home run on their part. Even though me personally, if you ask me my favorite set of the year, I wouldn't say Bloomburrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as biggest success for Magic set of the year, I would say Bloomburrow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was trying to be very careful about not being biased about the precons because I think the precons for the set were incredible, and we've already given our rankings to the precons for Bloomburrow. But the more I looked at just the cards that were available and the mechanics that were available in the main set, I think Gift is a huge success.
Gift,
and
totally.
is really, really fun for Commander, and I hope we see more of it. I think we will. I think that Offspring is an adorable mechanic, both flavorfully and mechanically. It's very interesting and appropriate. And it made sort of for interesting card design. I really liked that Prowess came back. I think that's really fun. But I agree, the limited format for Bloomburrow was not super compelling. And when you did figure it out, it was just aggro, which was sort of...
But that's okay for a set like this because
Totally.
Can you imagine if they did it the other way where they really concentrate on the limited environment to the detriment of it being digestible for new players? This would be the wrong place to do that because the way this set looks and the feel of it is open arms to new players. And then you need the gameplay to also be open arms to new players because if you're like, well, I'm open arms here, but as soon as you walk in the door, we're closing the arms and not letting you any further because it's the complexity level is in such a different direction. That wouldn't make any sense.
For sure. I think Bloomburrow did everything they wanted it to do.
Yeah.
I thought it was cute. I thought it was funny. I thought the cards were adorable and the art direction was right and felt interesting enough to maintain the core of Magic players while still welcoming people in. For me, Bloomburrow was an S, and I think the things that Wizards learned from Bloomburrow will affect sets long term.
I hope they be careful about the novel thing we talked about earlier because this is again the exact same type of thing where you can very much go wrong, like the unsets.
Absolutely.
Like Thunder Junction, it's like, hey, listen, this is a thing you can pull off once in a while. If you try and do this all the time, it will not work. It works because it's a novelty.
Yeah. Turning the planeswalkers into cute animals was quite a good idea, I think.
That was fun.
Yeah, and it didn't make them wear a silly hat. They just became a silly creature. I'm gonna raise my rank. Originally had this at like a B+, but I'll put it at an A. Because again, I just thought opening the product, and that's a big part for me. It's just like, do I want to crack packs of this? And the answer was no. And the foils also, I don't know if people out there open collector boosters. I opened a couple, and the quality was, for some reason, extremely poor on everything I saw and opened. Yeah, it's like kind of faded, didn't pop in the same way. And I thought if you were a new player and that was the first foil you opened, that would be a very disappointing experience if you were looking for something that really popped and looked good. But
they did have those gilded foils, which I thought were gorgeous.
Yeah.
But obviously very limited in terms of what you opened.
I'll give this one an A.
So Jimmy up to an A. Josh, should we get an official ranking from you?
I gave it an S.
That means that Jimmy, with you going up to an A, we're ranking Bloomburrow an S.
Super.
Yeah, I think it's a set we will remember for a long time.
For sure.
I agree,
yeah. If you ask me of the sets I remember this year, Bloomburrow stands out.
Yeah.
This next one stands out as well. It's Mystery Booster 2, which came out, I guess, at the same time as Bloomburrow.
Yeah, the release date on Mystery Booster is kind of weird because like when they launched what it is different than when like the product dropped, is different when you could get it in your hands. So Mystery Booster 2 release date there was no pre-release.
Yeah.
It was because acquisition of it was different than normal. You can't walk into a store exactly and buy it in the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
So this set was very interesting. It is similar to Mystery Booster 1. The way that you could get it was only through the online store by buying Festival in a Box or at MagicCon, which was quite a controversial thing as well.
Yep.
A lot of people were saying, why isn't this available in stores? Makes sense.
Fair.
I don't blame them. Yeah, it's very fair. The most valuable reprint was Urza's Saga, which was at $44 and went down to $31. So that is a drop, but it is hard to it was like, are you going to actually open it? This set had a ton of cards in it. Just tons and tons. It had a really cool...
Yeah, most sets have like 300, this is 350 cards. And
2,000 or something?
Yeah, because it's trying to be like a chaos draft in the box is always the sort of idea behind it. And so, any single rare is way more diluted than your average set,
Yeah, they had the really cool Future Sight frames put onto a lot of the cards.
Obsessed.
And they also had these white-bordered reprints, which, obviously divide people right down the line, whether or not they think this is great or not.
And that's why they're great.
That's why they're great. Each box had very limited foils in them, and those foils, some of them are worth quite a bit, and they're very fun to open if you do have a box opening experience.
The rating was one per box. If you
Yeah.
got two, then you're extremely lucky.
Yeah. One per box is wild. They had a bunch of playtest cards like they did in the last mystery booster, and these always add an interesting fold to the mix. They introduce crazy, wild mechanics. They make the draft environment very much more exciting and weirdo. And then they had some unknown event graduates, so cards that Gavin made at the unknown events at MagicCons in the past. Some of them graduated into actual cards, playtest cards in Mystery Booster. Playtest cards specifically.
These are not legal in any format,
No.
but they're cool in the
They're
draft.
fun to play in a draft
Yeah,
environment.
and you can probably get
can
away
rule
with
zero 'em.
most of them, in the Commander game as well. And then they very interestingly made some cards that were usually only available in Arena prior, and then they added an Acorn stamp, notably Oracle of the Alpha.
That was the
which
big
is a
one,
card that
yeah.
shuffles in the Power 9 to your deck when you play it.
So sick.
Yeah, it's absurd.
All of those cards are only available in foil, so they're extremely, extremely limited in terms of printing.
Yeah.
They're like, most of them are like $80 plus.
but super
But
cool.
really cool.
Yeah.
For me, the cool factor for Mystery Booster 2 was through the roof. It was wildly fun to play. The packs were really, really fun to open. Even the ones that weren't the Future Sight and the white bordered ones, you could tell whoever made it, Gavin, had really excellent taste in Magic cards. And
A lot of
had,
curation, yeah.
It was extremely well curated list, and a lot of them that you opened, you were just like, "Oh, this is the first time it's gotten an English reprint, or this is the first time it's ever been in paper for some of these arena only cards." The selection of this product was awesome, and honestly, if we're talking about like Magic experiences, us getting to draft Mystery Booster and reveal those cards to the world at Gen Con was like
Up there.
I would say top 3 Magic experiences in my life.
Yeah.
It was so much fun to open this product.
Yeah, I personally am really high on this product because I love Chaos Draft, and I think for a new player to open a pack like this, you're getting cards across all of Magic's history that's like kind of Gavin's favorites in a lot of ways. And Gavin really knows this game really well, and
Turns
there are a
out.
lot of really cool, fun cards in there. I remember opening a pack going like, every single one of these I want to put into a binder.
Yeah.
Because they all have some use in something, and they're all old. They're not necessarily these new busted cards that are just jam-packed with keywords, but they're very simple but effective. And so I really enjoyed that fact about it, and that, I have a couple of them I got from MagicCons. I think the distribution thing is definitely a question for this, and it does bring the rating down a little bit for me.
Yeah.
But these will be available for the foreseeable future at MagicCon. So I think initially it's going to feel like they're impossible to get or hard to get. Over time, more and more of them are going to enter into the world, and I think that problem will be mitigated quite a bit. But yeah, I do feel for the people that don't want to order a festival in the box. And
Or can't make it to a MagicCon.
I can't make it to a MagicCon, yeah.
Especially international.
Yeah,
folks,
exactly.
Is a big problem.
Yeah.
Something we didn't mention is there's the Future Sight printings of Legends that had the what are they called? The like silver Vanguard art.
Oh, Vanguard art.
And
that's
all
right.
of those are really like super, super cool. They're like old Tadine Urza on a
modern Magic
on
frame.
the Future Sight frame.
Yeah, the Future Sight frame, yeah.
For like 4 mana Urza. They're really cool.
Morass.
But the fact that they couldn't get this product into people's hands is a huge knock to it. Of course.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of the fence with that a little bit. I think we may be talking about this product a little early because limited availability means that my own interaction with it has been pretty limited as well. Like, we drafted that thing, and I think I drafted one other time, and that's it. But from the novelty argument I've been making this whole time, I think it's kind of cool they created a product that's supposed to give you a unique experience at like a MagicCon or some reason to go and do a physical thing. It's not something that you're supposed to draft 50 times in a row.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of cool. So I understand sort of there's this tug and pull between like, hey, let's just give everybody everything all the time. And like that can lower the experience though if you do that in the incorrect way. So then when they do the other thing, I feel conscious about criticizing them too much for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a thing that's going to be at MagicCons throughout next year and probably the following until they do Mystery Boosters 3, which who knows how long that'll take. So I think the idea of it is cool. I think for me, there was some things outside of their control that took away from it a little. The Mystery in a Box, the Festival in a Box thing had that problem where some of the stuff you got, you could open the Jeweled Lotus and you could open the Mana Crypt at a time when they had just been banned, but you bought it at a time when they were not banned. And it's hard to separate those two things, even though Wizards are not technically at fault there. And I don't want to get into that whole controversy here. We're going to do a year-end wrap up, and I'm sure we'll talk about, the ban itself further down the line. But it's hard for me to completely separate that from the experience, and that's a negative for sure of it. So I think that I will look upon this positively ultimately, and I may look upon it differently a year from now when I've been able to draft it a couple of more times and sort of interact with it more. But at this point, I'm a little less high on it than the two of you are for those reasons. So
it's hard to separate it from the Festival in a Box.
Yeah, there was just some real big downsides to, like, we had literal staff members here excited, got foiled Jewel Lotus in my Festival in a Box. And the following Monday, it's banned out from under them.
Yeah. And,
that sort of marred it a little bit. And I'm not saying I'm going to give it an F or something because of that. In fact, I'm going to give it a B.
Okay.
So I still think it was positive, and I think, again, if we talk about it again in a year, which we probably won't because it won't be a new set, but I would maybe adjust it at that point, having been to more events, had more chances to draft it. But up till now, I've drafted it 2 times.
I'm an A on this product. I've drafted it a couple times at MagicCon, and then I drafted their Festival in the Box, and every time it's been a blast.
I'm going to be an A on it as well. Very rarely do I buy boxes to save and hold for special times. And this I've gotten a couple boxes of. I bought a Festival in the Box as well, and I'm just excited for the day when it comes. Hey, you guys want to do a draft night? Cool, I got a Festival in the Box.
Yeah,
we don't need to.
awesome.
Yeah, and I think anyone that's a Magic player can sit down and play it without having to, like, the next set is Duskmourn. Like, you really have to understand how the rooms play out and all that stuff to have a fun time drafting that. I think Festival in the Box. I think Mystery Booster 2 has just the ability to be a very fun and easy draftable set for anyone to come into and just play. And it could be a very sort of just like, who cares what the theme is tonight? But Mystery Booster 2 is going to be able to provide a fun experience for you.
Cool. That means our final grade for Mystery Booster 2 is an A. All right, let's move on to the next set. It's Duskmourn, House of Horror.
Yeah.
Came out in September 27th. Excuse me. The major mechanics here were Eerie, which is basically Constellation.
Yeah.
But it also includes unlocking rooms themselves, Manifest Dread, Delirium, and Survival.
Yeah, it cares about being tapped.
The most built commander was Valgavoth, Harrower of Souls. He's the face commander of one of the precons, and a very powerful one at that. The most popular new cards in the set were Withering Torment. Black got another enchantment removal spell, this time at instant speed.
Yep, 3 mana.
Untimely Malfunction, which is a flexible SWAT spell. And Enduring Vitality is the other big one. So this is the Enduring Cycle was a big cycle for Commander.
Yep.
Enduring Vitality is the green one, but the white one is also very popular as well. And the blue one, Enduring Curiosity and Enduring Innocence, I think.
Yeah, most valuable reprints, Leyline of the Void. Not anyone too excited about this. It was $2, went down to 50 cents.
Okay.
But the bonus sheet did have Goryo's Vengeance on it, which was a very popular card, not necessarily in Commander. That was $25 and went all the way down to $6.
Yeah,
so,
huge.
Yeah, just again, that was just a card that had not seen very many reprints. So
Duskmourn is interesting, totally different vibe from Bloomburrow. Felt very night and day. We kind of got yanked all over the place in terms of tone this year. But I think my favorite thing about Duskmourn was the limited environment surprised me and was incredibly fun.
Yeah, I like the limited environment as well, but I think this was the most punishing for gameplay mistakes out of all the limited environments this year. It was a very high complexity level, and for that reason, a lot of the pros and streamers really enjoyed it. I found it to be a little frustrating at times because just one small mistake or little error could really cost you. But for some people, that's a really big upside. For me, it was a little bit more of a downside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that's why I loved it, and I thought this was probably the best draft environment of the year. I do agree it is a follow-up to Bloomburrow for a bunch of reasons, not just tonally, but complexity and draft environment. It seemed oddly placed. I might have flip-flopped Thunder Junction in this to just kind of not have such a left turn from Bloomburrow for those people that are sort of entering the stream at that point.
Yeah.
But from personally me liking the set, I liked it a lot, and I thought rooms were a really cool addition to Commander. Eerie obviously is very good. And with the limited environment being like, maybe potentially an all-timer, there was a lot to like about it.
Yeah.
I think the thing that missed the mark the most for me was just the setting. I just don't love horror movies and that horror world to begin with. And I thought the way that it was portrayed on the cards made it seem even worse hokiness-wise than the detective theme or the Outlaws of Thunder Junction cowboy theme. I think just like having a dilapidated TV with static on it in the Magic world just didn't feel right. And I also thought the treatments were so bad looking in this case, the TV one.
The TV one,
it's so I think like it felt a little too not real,
This
not
was
like
also
actual Magic.
the like confetti foil ones where they introduced this very like
with the
anime card frame, which I did not care for at all.
And they're continuing to do that now as well.
Morass.
It's
funny you guys mentioned all this stuff, and I'm like, I can't even picture it in my head. I don't even see it. I don't
it
even
looks
know.
like a Japanese card game.
Yeah, it looks like a Pokemon special foil. The whole thing is just blasting at you with the foiling.
I feel like
don't
that's
care for
everything
it at
all
all.
the time now.
Yeah. But this game,
What
I mean,
does
if
the
you saw
card
one of
do?
these in
That's all I
person,
see.
they're
I'm sure I've
these
seen them,
really
but my
do
brain
it.
just doesn't.
The thing about this
it doesn't
is-
catalog them.
Yeah.
It does make it hard to tell what the card does.
Yeah, it's
because
hard to
the
read.
foil, like it's not well designed in my opinion. But
I really hated the theme of this, though. I just did not resonate with it one bit, and it just didn't feel like Magic for me for the first time.
Yeah, I guess switching it with Thunder Junction would have made sense because, of course, they released it around Halloween.
Yeah.
Which I guess they felt like they had to do. Maybe the answer was pushing Bloomburrow. I don't know.
It did feel like a jump scare after Bloomburrow, where it's like it's easy, it's fun, and it's knights and little mouse, and it's
And
so
now
much
it's this
fun.
really scary thing that's
Yeah.
complicated too.
Yeah,
so
it's
it's like
complicated.
on both ends of
On
the
both
spectrum.
ends of
Like,
it,
we had a cute theme, and we went to the opposite of that, and we had something that was pretty simple for new players, and then we went to the opposite of that, which I think that left turn I don't love about it. But if you just took this in a vacuum, I liked it. I mean, I'm a film guy, and horror movies are kind of a basis for that, so I did like a lot of the references that maybe I didn't get with some of the other sets. I guess Westerns, that should have been true, but it didn't hit me in the same way. I do agree. Like TV screens and camcorders and stuff, I don't personally tend to be drawn towards that in Magic as something that I like. So that's definitely a downside. I agree of the set.
Yeah.
It felt too modern.
I'm not bothered as much by that, I guess. I think Universes Beyond kind of numbed me to seeing
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo on Magic cards. But they also made a Scooby-Doo on a regular Magic card with
Right.
Sophia earlier in the year.
True.
So that didn't really bother me. It did seem weird that it was just sort of it felt like another detective set.
Yeah, this and Murders could have been the same set.
Like Murders and Karlov
Could have been
Manor
the same
again.
set, those two.
Well,
You
and
could match them
really
together.
weird.
and we have Innistrad, which is sort of a gothic horror setting, so it's not that far from that.
Yeah.
That was a little strange. Like I sort of liked the story. I like the idea. I like the demon that has the lore. The
Valgoth, yeah.
Valgavoth that has this
whole thing,
realm, and he's expanded the haunted house. And I liked that story just generally. That's not really my thing, but I thought that was kind of a neat idea.
I guess so. A whole world that's a horror movie, I think, has the same problems for me that Karlov Manor has, which is can't we just have a horror storyline that happens in a regular place? Like, it's just hard for me to believe, this whole world's a house. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
I mean, you just
whatever.
compare
It's a small plane.
Think about it this way. Compare Duskmourn, OTJ, and Murders to the gravity and the coolness that March of the Machine had. And
Or like Neon
and
Dynasty.
Mom and Neon Dynasty, yeah. Those felt like,
Those are worlds that you can believe exist.
in our Magic worlds, and a threat, an external threat's coming in. It's the Phyrexians, it's whatever, the Eldrazi. This just feels like we're just taking our cast of characters and putting them into conveniently cool worlds that fit something. I don't know. It's just,
They all felt very low stakes.
it's a stretch.
I like your theme
all
park.
of them,
I like
yeah.
your theme park analogy. This felt like a theme park.
Yeah.
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 It literally is the House of Horror. It's like Halloween Horror Nights. It's like you go to Universal and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
a horror theme today. Oh, that's funny how they made this a slightly more horror-ish. Okay, cool.
Yeah. It took a lot of the stuff that I loved about New Capenna that was novel in New Capenna and then made the whole year different New Capennas.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, we're good. You got, okay.
At the very least, draft was fun. I
But
think.
draft was really fun.
Yeah, draft was good, and I think we'll see a lot of the cards being played in the future. Like the Overlords are pretty cool, and I think all the enduring ones as well are all playable.
For me, the positives balance the negatives. I gave this one a C.
Yeah, I gave this a C as well.
I give it a B. I think I will look back and be like, yeah, I like that.
Yep.
Limited.
That brings it down to a C
I
for...
definitely will want to draft it. This will be a set
Yeah.
where I'm like,
Yeah, totally.
that stands out as like, a Neon Dynasty, not as good as Neon Dynasty, but like one of those that's like, of that year, I want to draft this set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also had a very unique draft environment.
Yeah.
It felt like it was very
Totally.
it felt special.
It's like Jimmy said, it's pretty punishing. Small decisions matter a lot. And that's novel because I don't think most sets are like that. And
Yeah.
I think if that was the case all the time, then I think I wouldn't necessarily like it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Still, C overall for Duskmourn. One final set of the year. This is Foundations. Came out November 15th, 2024. The major mechanics were very simple for this one. It was like life gain and flyers and ramp and sort of stompy and red was aggro. Like
this would have been a great follow-up to Bloomburrow.
The color pie. This would have been a perfect follow-up to Bloomburrow.
And you can imagine where will that happen because there's only one set in between. So,
yeah. Normally in the old Magic times, Duskmourn would not have existed. It may have just been Murders and Duskmourn together.
Well, there was always a fall set, so they would have moved Bloomburrow to that spot, though, I think.
Yeah.
The most built commander from this one was Shrufus, Sproutsire. It was a very popular new Saproling commander. The most popular new cards were Blasphemous Edict, a broken new board wipe, Banner of Kinship, a very powerful typal overrun, and Scrawling Crawler, which is a cool new win con.
Yep.
The best reprints here were Doubling Season, always goes up to $50, and it always comes down to about $25.
And now they have the cutest version ever of this version.
Get it now, because it'll be $50 in a year.
Yeah. That'll be like $200 in a year, I think. That card is,
The bonus sheet had Akroma's Memorial, and that was $40. Is now down to $22. This also had Foundations.
Still play Akroma's Memorial?
And decks that can cheat it out, I think.
Yeah.
But it's
there's got to be better
narrow
stuff to cheat out.
Yeah, it's quite narrow. These days.
It's fun.
Yeah, I feel
People
like I was
still play
cutting it from
Doubling
decks in
Season.
2015. So
Like, when was the last time you put a Doubling Season in the deck? It's still $50.
it's true. Doubling Season is unfortunately not that good anymore.
Yeah.
Good point. Fair point.
This also had Foundations Jumpstart, which had a lot of new commanders in it. A lot of with the anime treatment. This again brought back the confetti foils and the anime style border. But more importantly, this is a foundational set. This was designed to teach new players how to play the game and make it accessible and make it look the most Magic it's ever magicked.
And it's core sets all over again, but done in a new way with a new title, a little fancier.
I mean, I love this set. It feels nostalgic. It feels like what Magic felt like when I was learning to play, back in the 90s. I was surprised when we did the review of how many of the cards were relevant, but they were still simply designed. They didn't have as much text. The mechanics are, less complex or less specific. And maybe that's because when you get into this realm, you're naturally going to be more broad in your design, and that's going to be more applicable in more decks. So that might just be a sort of the outcome or a symptom of that. But still, I don't know. It's fun to go back to the world where one of my favorite moments happened when we did the pre-release here at Command Zone. And I just heard another game going on, and it was like, I think Karlov was like, okay, I'll cast Sarah Angel.
You're like, what?
And whoever he was playing went, ugh. And I was just like, people have been making that noise to that card for 30 years. And there's just something cool.
Shivan Dragons that to kill you.
There was just something cool about the fact that those cards are in this set and still relevant and still doing what they've always done, which I just, it feels like home. It's like, it just feels like a warm place in your heart.
This set felt like a relief to me.
Yeah.
Where it was like we had a whole year that was all wacky and wonky, and we're taking characters you love and dressing them up and giving them a feather boa, and suddenly it's just like, it's a knight. It's a knight and an angel and a dragon and a cat.
Yeah, there's elves and there's goblins.
And there's elves and that's it.
Yeah.
Just magic, baby.
And it just felt like, and it was accessible and it was interesting but simple. And it just felt like it was an answer to a lot of the problems we've been talking about with Magic for the last 2 years, which is it's too complicated. It doesn't look like Magic anymore. And there's no beginner products. We can't point them to anything. And suddenly Foundation appeared out of a cloud and was like, I'm everything you want.
Yeah, I'm back.
And I'm going to be on the shelves for ages, and I'm reasonably priced. And I was like, oh, thank God.
I will say I have a few friends that are like, yeah, keep drafting it. Keep playing it on Arena because they're very new to the game, and this does not require them to read a card that's sideways. And unlock part of it, and only things at sorcery speed and this and that. Yeah, so
you can clock how everything works.
Everyone kind of knows how it works. You run out of cards in your hand and limited. It's just like a normal, it doesn't have crazy complicated mechanics. It's not super aggro. So
it was a fun draft environment. It's not. Again,
it's fun.
It's not like I think 10 drafts and you kind of got it. But like it's proof that you can make a set that is good for newer players, but still fun enough for enfranchised players that they will play some of it. And I don't think you can ever expect that, like, we're going to create the set that new players are going to love and old players are going to be able to play 1,000 times.
Yeah. I am going to bump my grade up on this. I'm going to give this an A. Just a regular old A. I think over time, this will maybe next year I'll look back and go like, nah, that was an S, because we really need more of this type of set to just pull that valve a little bit back and just give people just regular old Magic. But this to me was in general a hit. Like there's also some cool cards like Bloodthirsty Conqueror and all sorts of like I think the mythic level cards are all fun.
Powerful real cards that like we will continue to put into decks.
Yeah, some fun Planeswalkers and all that.
I'm an S on it today. This is one of the, like, it's the opposite of Assassin's Creed where I was scolding people for opening it. I'm like, if you're opening Foundations, I love that we're encouraging this kind of product. I love that I can point to a product for people to buy that is going to welcome them into our game. So I'm an S.
Okay.
Yeah, I gave it an A. It's probably my personal favorite set of the year. But I think a core set type product is just going to be hard for it to stand out over time. Right now, the novelty of it is what we're feeling because we haven't had a set like this in a long time.
Right. Suddenly it's novel.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
And this is not the type of thing I think should be novel, but it is. But it's going to be on the shelves for a long time, and I think by, we won't, I don't believe we'll look back and really remember it by the time it's all said and done because of that fact.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But
yeah,
that doesn't take away from the set. I think it's really great. And I do wish they would do maybe not core sets, but this kind of thing a little more often.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the solution of like, let's just have this thing be, out there for this amount of time
is really going to solve that.
Maybe every 2 years we do one rather than they used to do a core set every year. But yeah.
I also just don't understand why they didn't do Commander Precons with Foundations.
Really
weird. It feels so bizarre.
It feels like there was a concerted sort of strategy from within the walls, and I don't know anything. I haven't talked to anything over there, but what it feels like is that they really wanted to refocus on standard because they've been just saying the word standard and focusing things.
I love that. Yeah.
But they decided to coincide that with Foundations,
right?
Which is why I think maybe there wasn't Commander Precons. Again, I don't know if that's why, but if it's like, but if we make Commander Precons, then this won't be a product that gets people to playing standard, and I think they want people to start playing standard because that was a core pillar of Magic for so many years, and I think they're missing it. And I think that's a viable, that as a goal makes sense.
Yeah.
And if I was Wizards, I'd probably want to try and get people excited about standard again too. But I don't know if your new player product is the exact time to be doing that.
Right. Yeah. It's hard for a set to be everything to everyone, but I want it.
I mean, this is pretty close.
It's pretty close.
It's close, yeah.
I think we're going to call Foundations an A overall. All right, those are the sets that came out this year. We've covered all of them. I want to talk about, we've given them all grades so we can have a rough idea, but I want to talk about the worst set of the year. Which one do you think was the biggest dud? And I will want answers from all of you. I've also pulled the staff, and I've pulled our patrons for a little bit of context as well.
Assassin's Creed.
That's what Josh and the staff said this time around.
The staff agreed with me.
The staff...
I didn't even influence them, I swear.
The command zone staff agreed.
Josh went around with candy to
overwhelmingly. A lot of the reasoning that like everybody gave was just like, I didn't care about it. It didn't affect me. The cards weren't interesting. So I like it's my least favorite, which I think is fair. I wouldn't like... I didn't love it either. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
The command zone patrons overwhelmingly said Murders at Karlov Manor.
Oh, wow.
And I agree with them. I think it was, the design was weird and the mechanics were narrow, and it's just we're gonna look back on it and just be like, yeah, what was going on there? What happened?
It's a mystery.
How did they take a Ravnica set and just turn it into such a dud?
We need some investigators to figure that one out. I said Fallout. I just don't think that when I heard about all the Universes Beyond stuff coming out, Fallout, I was just like, I don't know. There are guns in Fallout. And it just didn't feel great. I did like that there's more energy stuff and they found ways to incorporate that stuff, but for me, it just was not. Assassin's Creed, I was like, yeah, this didn't miss the mark for me because even though it sucked in terms of how the opening experience and all that, there are assassins and there are assassin weapons and there are pirates. And if you ask me what I think about Assassin's Creed, I'm like, yeah, that all tracks.
Those are the things.
Yeah, those were the things. So it didn't really upset me as much.
Yeah. It is possible the things I didn't like about the Assassin's Creed set were the things that wouldn't appeal to me about Assassin's Creed the game.
Yeah.
Fair.
All right, we've covered a lot of our reasons why. Let's move on to our favorite set of the year, the one that we would call the best set of the year. Again, we pulled the staff, the patrons. The staff could not decide on this one. We got
A tie.
An even split.
two-way tie
Wow.
where 5 people voted for Bloomburrow and 5 voted for Modern Horizons 3.
Nice.
I mean, a decent number of people just didn't vote also.
Yeah, well, everybody in the office.
Well, that's only 13 people, but I think we've got 18.
Well, they
so-
voted for other sets.
Oh, got it. Oh, yeah. Somebody said Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
Who said Assassin's Creed?
Nobody said Assassin's Creed. Nobody said Assassin's Creed.
One person here is like, hey, I liked it.
I loved
And it was
it.
Mickey Mouse. The
Yeah.
one person.
The patrons voted. Was it an overwhelming Bloomburrow?
Yes, yeah, it was 40% voted for Bloomburrow.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's cute. It's fluffy. It's accessible. And I can see a lot of that. I voted for Mystery Booster 2. I think
like
this is what Foundations is to a more experienced Magic player. And that, for me, is something that I really am looking forward to playing more of. I think just Chaos Draft is one of my favorite things to do. So for me, this had everything it needed without having to be stuck in a weird mansion somewhere or a weird haunted mansion somewhere. And it was nice. I liked it. Mystery Booster 2.
For me, the best set of the year was Foundations. I think I liked Bloomburrow a lot. I like Mystery Booster 2 a lot, but they both had asterisks on them. Things that I was like, yeah, we're sort of overlooking the limited environment. We're sort of overlooking the fact that like most people aren't going to get to play it. For me, Foundations was like everything I wanted the set to be, and it delivers.
Yeah, I took this question to mean what was sort of my personal best set, whereas a lot of my rankings were kind of like, from a dispassionate view. And so I think Bloomburrow was the best set of the year. But if you ask me what my favorite set of the year is, I would say Foundations.
Yeah.
Something about the nostalgia of it, and it just felt really warm and fuzzy to play. I really enjoyed it. So
Something we didn't talk about with Foundations was it was really accessible, really exciting mechanics for people where it's just like people like life gain and there's life gain. People like cats and there's cats, and that was very cool. All right, let's talk about 2024 from a bird's eye view. I want to talk about the year overall. Do we think this was a good year for Magic sets? How does it compare to the last couple of years?
They really waited till the end to make it good, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Because the first half of the year didn't feel great.
They really had us within the first half.
Yeah, but the Foundations, Bloomburrow, Mystery Booster 2, like last swing of the bat towards the end there in Duskmourn, I was like, okay, cool, we climbed back. But I think this was the year I played the least amount of Arena up until Duskmourn.
Sure.
And then I played a bunch of Foundations as well on that. And so I think for me, this year was like a 50-50. And Modern Horizons 3 was, I think, the standout that it's going to stand out any year that there's a Modern Horizons set, just because it just has such a high power level and affects the format so much. But I think as far as other cards entering the format for me, the Surveil lands and Modern Horizons 3 were kind of it.
Yeah, I agree. I was looking through the sets in the last couple of years, and it feels like there was a few years that were just banger after banger after banger, and this year was not one of those years. It had a couple of like big highlight sets where you're like, Modern Horizons 3 was good. We expected that. Bloomburrow was fun. We expected that. And the fact that we're so high on Foundations feels like a reflection of how the rest of the year went.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
So like I'm stoked on Foundations, and everything about Foundations says I'm not special.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm the baseline, and I'm like, oh, the baseline.
There you are.
Thank God. Yeah, whereas if baseline all the time, we get bored with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that shows you where we've been. It's below the baseline.
Yeah. We've been all over the place. So I think overall this was a fine year for sets. There's a couple we'll look back on very excitedly, and overall I would say it's worse than a couple, like the last couple years probably.
Yeah, to get context, if you look at sort of previous years, I would say this year we had one S tier, and really nobody really put a lot of S. It's not like we disagreed and everyone thought there was a lot of S's. So it's Bloomburrow or there's zero.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Foundations maybe.
Yeah, and I would say last year, if we were doing this, we're probably comfortably Lord of the Rings and maybe Wilds of Eldraine.
Yeah, Lost Caverns was high as well.
LCI.
Yeah.
So there's 3 potential S tier sets. 2022 is an insane year.
40K.
This is
We have
bananas.
Brothers
Dynasty.
War, Dominator United,
Warhammer?
40K, Neon Dynasty.
Yeah.
My guess is that's an abnormal year in the other direction, where that is a
even Baldur's Gate and New Capenna were awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a year where like I don't think we could expect every year to be like that.
This reminds me a lot of 2021, which had the Innistrad set that was Vow and Midnight Hunt.
Right.
It also had Mystery
Horizons.
Booster, Modern Horizons 2, and then it had like Strixhaven was sort of the high point,
Yeah,
and then Kaldheim was fine, and like Time Spiral Remastered was fine and like cool, but
I'd much rather have a Kaldheim than the Markov Manor, Karlov Manor. Sorry. It's like,
Yeah,
he's not doing this on purpose.
I'm not doing this on purpose, I swear.
I think it's fair to say that this is a down year that's sort of below the average of what, if you look back, we usually get. And I think, our enthusiasm about the sets by the grading that we gave kind of reflects that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think if you were to ask me what grade do I give this year overall, it's probably a C.
Yeah.
C+. I
I think C's fair.
Yeah.
This is a forgettable year in a lot of respects.
Foundation's really pulling its weight towards the end.
And
there.
it's very possible that in 3 or 4 years, we don't even talk about Foundations because of the type of set that it is. In which case, maybe only Bloomburrow stands out from this entire year as something that we really even sort of ever refer to or think about, in the years to come as like, So, and that seems, and I want to say like part of that, I believe, is we are in this moment where this was the movie year, if you think about it, right?
Right.
We did detective noir movies. We did Western movies. We did animated movies. We did horror movies. And we're about to go to car movies and space movies. Yeah. They'd kind of dipped their toe in the water with like the Harry Potter Strixhaven thing. And then they did New Capenna, which was Mafia. And I think they were like, oh, we could do that more. And then they just decided to do
Only
a
that?
deluge
yeah,
of it.
and we're also in the middle, or maybe the rising of the Universes Beyond moment, which really mix into that in a similar way. So it feels like everything is kind of movies and pop culture.
Fortnitification.
It's like that guy that you're talking to that only speaks in movie quotes, where you're just like, oh my gosh, do you have something to say?
Like, why did you have to pair the Universes Beyond stuff with all the movie? If your Magic IP is paralleling that as closely as possible, that feels like this lack of enthusiasm is tied to the numbing quality of the novelty problem that we've been talking about this whole time. You got Universes Beyond, which is doing a lot of movies and pop culture stuff, and then you at the same time chose to do all your IP sets as movie reference stuff.
Yeah.
So then that just feels very similar to that, and this all might have worked better if you you did a little zigzag where it's like, okay, we're going to do a bunch of Universes Beyond, and as a result, we'll do more Foundations and fantasy-like stuff, which is Bloomburrow and Foundations, to offset. But no, we leaned into what's already happening, and that, I think, is causing a lack of enthusiasm, at least on my part, and I feel that from the community as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Magic isn't magic is what I keep hearing, and this year did not do that argument. It didn't stop that argument from being made.
No.
Yeah. Okay, to the listeners, do you agree, disagree? What do you think were the best sets from 2024? The worst sets? Let us know in the comments. It should be a very lively one. Don't forget, always keep it civil, because this is a game that we all still love at the core of it. And we would love to also know, like, maybe what do you want more of in the future, right? Is this something that you want to go back to? Well, I just want to see more Phyrexians. I want more characters and villains that we know. Eldrazi, I don't care if we see him again. I just want something that we're familiar with. Or do you want to expand into newer things, newer villains, newer baddies? Let us know in the comments, as always. And thanks so much for participating as well. And I also look forward to the Discord for our patrons to have some fun discussions in there.
All right. If you want to pick up any of the sweet sets we talked about today, any of the cool individual cards in all of 2024, maybe we reminded you of some cool ones, go to cardkingdom.com/command. Card Kingdom has a huge selection of singles throughout the year and sealed product if you're really into Foundations or Bloomburrow, or maybe some of the ones we gave slightly lower grades to. You can pick those all up in one place. You know that Card Kingdom knows cards because whenever you order a card on their website, they're exactly the card you ordered. We talked a lot about different treatments and different foils and different versions and conditions, and we're picky about cards. So I appreciate shopping from a place that I trust to get it right. And if something does go wrong, they've got a great team to take care of it and make sure that you get exactly the card you're looking for. So support the show and get some cool cards. 2024 was a medium year, but it did have some neat individual cards.
Yep.
Go to cardkingdom.com/command.
All right, and once you get those cards, you want to keep them protected. Use the Game Accessories brand that we trust our own collections to here at the Command Zone. That's ultrapro.com/command. You can get your binders, playmats, deck boxes, sleeves, dice, wall scrolls. Sorry, editors, for having to show all that on camera. But they do have everything you're looking for if you want to make your battlefield look awesome or you just want to make your game room look awesome. If you want people to go like, whoa, when they look just at your playmat setup, ULTRAPRO has the Mana 8 line, and they've got all the Magic IP. So if you have bought a commander, you can probably get that on a playmat of sleeves and the deck box to really match out the whole set. So it's a great way to spend those holiday dollars maybe you got from your friends and family. Again, ultrapro.com/command. And also, they often have tons of huge discounts. And I would pretty much guarantee that after the holiday, they're going to be doing stuff like that because that's the time at which, hey, you got the inventory left over, let's discount it and move it out the door. And they do that all the time. It's one of the few newsletters I sign up for is ultrapro.com/command.
All right.
Big thank you to our amazing team here at the Command Zone. Before we go, we're going to say thank you to Rachel Kendra, Karina Cruz, Sebastian Salazar, Garab Galati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridge, and Jake Boss, Eric Lem, Josh Murphy, Manson Lung, Christopher Batista, Evan Limburger, and Sam Waldo.
They're working really hard at the end of the year. We push a lot of episodes, and they're really long ones out. So, yeah, please give them some love in your hearts, and they will feel it. I promise.
Or you can give them love in the comments, too. And
that's a good
see
point.
It.
Yeah.
And they'll read it.
All right, thanks, everybody,
See you next
for watching.
time.
All right, bye-bye.
Peace.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.